Welcome to SI Now. I'm Robin Lundberg here with Ryan Aselta, and the Heat even their series with the Sixers 1-1. And with apologies to Dwyane Wade's wife, Gabrielle Union, they did it behind a vintage performance from D. Wade. Wade had a key steal and hit a clutch jumper over Ben Simmons in a 28-point night that saw him pass Larry Bird for 10th all-time in playoff scoring. So this begs the question, does Wade belong in the same conversation as guys like Bird?
No, absolutely not with Bird. And it's great to see Wade still has something left in the tank. It was a vintage performance because a couple years ago, we thought Wade was heading off into the sunset. But this took him 10 more games to get to this record or to break Bird's playoff scoring mark. Okay, so 10 more games there. But here's the big difference. Dwyane Wade's played in 174 playoff games, Robin. 86 of those games were with LeBron James. Larry Bird was the one dog in Boston for a long, long time, scoring those points with that on his shoulders. Dwyane was the two dog to LeBron for half of the playoff games he's ever played. We're talking about a guy who's probably top 25, 30 all-time compared to Larry Bird, who's a top 10 all-time player.
But I wouldn't dismiss Wade from almost any conversation. I think you're right. Bird is a little bit of a tier ahead of him. But with Dwyane Wade, you're talking about a top 5 shooting guard of all time, inarguably. You know, peak Wade versus peak Kobe, I think, is a real conversation. He won a title as the best player on a team. He's a part of 3 championships. And I saw on my timeline last night people arguing Wade versus Charles Barkley. That makes a lot of sense to me because both of those guys are all-time greats who are just a notch below the rarefied airs of the LeBrons, the Jordans, the Magics, and the Birds.
Tough to compare those two, such different shaped players, different style players. But yeah, I see. They're just outside of that range that we're talking about. Well, Robin, Wade and the Heat's win over the Sixers has left Philly big man Joel Embiid extremely frustrated. After Embiid was forced to sit out Game 2 as he continues to recover from a fractured orbital bone, he hopped on social media, voiced his frustration, saying he's sick and tired of being babied. Now, after the game, Sixers coach Brett Brown responded to his All-Stars comments.
He just wants to play basketball. He wants to be with his team. He wants to play in front of the fans. You know, he wants to see this through. And when he's not able to do that, he gets frustrated. And I respect his frustration. It's born out of competitiveness, and it's born out of him wanting to be with his team. But I do know the spirit in which he delivers that tweet that you just talked about reflects my conversations with him that is completely driven out of team, competitiveness, I want to play basketball, that type of flavor more than anything.
Now, Embiid has become an all-star on Instagram, but Robin, could this backfire? Does he have to back off a bit on social media?
Look, everybody gets tired of something at some point, so there will be a point where there's a backlash to Joel Embiid on social media or Ben Simmons being curt or what have you. I really don't think this is much of a problem. Obviously, Philadelphia is being cautious, and I've been someone who said they may take a little bit of a bump in trying to reintegrate him, but last night proved how much they do miss him overall because he's their best shot creator even though he's a big. Ben Simmons still doesn't have that jumper as marvelous as he is in the other facets of the game, and defensively Joel Embiid can be that anchor. So I think it was just Embiid sitting there watching his team lose a tough game.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think this is an issue. The culture in Philly embraces this social media persona he's taken. Michael Rubin, team's owner, told us that he loves everything about what Embiid does. The problem here, though, is the loss last night may play a role here. Philly goes up 2-0. They have that luxury of sitting Embiid a little longer to wait out this series. 1-1, they may force the hand and have to bring him back on Thursday night.
We'll see. He's too good at social media to dismiss that in any way. Unlike the Heat-Sixers series, the Warriors look like they will make quick work of the Spurs, taking a comfortable 2-0 lead. That didn't stop Greg Popovich from praising LaMarcus Aldridge, who had 34 for San Antonio.
LaMarcus has been a monster all year long. He's led our team at both ends of the floor. He doesn't complain about a darn thing out on the court. He just plays through everything. I can't imagine being more proud of a player as far as playing through adversity and being there for his teammates night after night after night. He's been fantastic.
Could you interpret that as shade for another Spurs star, Kawhi Leonard?
Absolutely. Translation, shot at Kawhi. Yeah, Pop knows what's going on here. He knows what he's doing. He's not quick to overly praise any of his ball players. He knows that this series is a lost cause, and he's going to use the platform over the next couple nights to to get his point across one last time to Kawhi. That's what he's doing.
I think you're probably right, but there is a possibility that he just wanted to praise LaMarcus Aldridge. He's not the first coach ever to say this guy goes out there and plays hurt and doesn't complain.
It was over the top, though, wasn't it? Praise his performance, but going on about the complaining, and he never ass out of a game, and despite his injuries.
Well, on social media, we're just talking about Embiid. It's called a subtweet. That was a sub pop in the press conference.
I like that. Can you tweet sub pop? I like that, Robin. Yeah. All right. The Knicks are about as far away from the playoffs as a franchise can get. New York's coaching search continues as Mark Jackson is scheduled to interview on Wednesday. What do you think? Would the former Knicks player, former Warriors coach be a good fit at the Garden?
I think this is about the worst possible hire that they could make, and it seems like the one that they will make because he's a former Knick. He's a big name, and they love, the big names so they can throw the press conference championship. But Mark Jackson had turmoil behind the scenes in Golden State with the front office there, a myriad of things that went on in the locker room. And strategically, I didn't love what he did running like isolation post-ups for Klay Thompson. I like the other guys that they're looking at more for that particular job, whether it be Fizdale, Blatt, Jerry Stackhouse, whoever.
Here's the problem. The Knicks are looking for a guy with a link to the franchise and the city. Jackson has both. He played at St. John's. He played for the Knicks, so they're looking for that connection with the fan base. Hopefully he's learned from his issues he had in Golden State. A lot of that was with the front office. He was stubborn. He didn't want to make the staff adjustments when it came to assistant coaches. Maybe he's learned. But another guy with the links is Jeff Van Gundy, obviously linked to some of the glory days. Jerry Stackhouse would be very intriguing. Jay Wright's name to be rumored around there. I kind of tend to agree, though. Despite the link, I don't know if Jackson is the right fit right now with the Knicks. All right, in football, Dez Bryant is enjoying his new title as unrestricted free agent. Former Cowboys wide receiver may want to stay in the NFC East, though, as there's report out that Dez would like to play for the Giants. Good landing spot for Bryant?
I don't think so. I don't think Beckham and Bryant works too well. We just saw Beckham with Brandon Marshall. That rings very similarly. And I think Dez Bryant is not the player he once was. This is more about the name. I mean, he was forced the ball a lot in Dallas and didn't catch a lot of those passes. I could see a temporary bump for him when he gets to a new place because he's motivated. He's such an emotional player. But the fact that Dallas was willing to get rid of him, I think tells you a lot. And I believe it will actually be to the benefit of Dak Prescott because he won't be looking just for Dez Bryant. Sort of the way it happened with Eli Manning and Jeremy Shockey, Cam Newton, Kelvin Benjamin. Sometimes when you can look at more options, you can really thrive.
My question is, how many divas can you have on one football team? Maybe at the start it would work well on the field, but I don't think John Mara's ever going to let that happen. After the headache he's dealt with Odell, to bring another diva-type wide receiver in Dez Bryant to New York, no chance that happening. Though I could see him end up in a place like Washington, and he gets his wish to stay in the NFC East.
I'm sure we'll see soon. The NFL draft is less than 2 weeks away, and 4 quarterbacks are jockeying for position at the top of the first round. Sports Illustrated recently spent time with Oklahoma's Baker Mayfield for our new big interview series. You can catch the full conversation on SITV. Go get your free trial today, but here's a sneak peek.
I'm going to read you this chunk of this NFL.com scouting report, okay? Falls short of size marks for traditional early round quarterback. Short with drop-down release. Benefited from spread scheme. Needs to improve full field scanning. Can be thrown off rhythm by delayed blitz packages. Has to prove he can rein in and control on-field edge and cockiness. Who are they talking about?
That's me right there.
All right, we're just 9 days away from the start of the NFL draft, and the quarterback position continues to generate the bulk of the football conversation. Let's welcome in the MMQB's Connor Orr. And Connor, let's talk QBs here, where Saints coach Sean Payton had some interesting comments recently to Peter King, saying, I don't see luck in this draft, and I don't see Carson Wentz, who I liked a lot coming into the draft. I'd feel a little bit uneasy if I were at the top of this draft and decided I had to have a QB. Connor, can you explain Payton's thinking here, and are there other coaches and experts that maybe share his opinion?
Absolutely. Yeah, I talked to one GM of the Combine who is looking for a quarterback, and basically the sentiment was, he told me, there's going to be something that you're going to have to learn to love about every single one of these guys. And, maybe it's someone turns the ball over too much, someone's too short, someone, there's all these different components that go into it. And so I think that while there may be more, pro caliber starters in this draft, guys that can at least come in and play a game, there might be less high end talent like Payton is referring to with Wentz and Jared Goff.
Now, NFL.com reports Josh Rosen is the QB most likely to slide. I'd get durability concerns, but it drives me crazy that people get angry. He has thoughts. Why would Rosen be the one to fall, and how far could he fall?
This one doesn't make any sense to me personally. I've always thought that he was, if not the best, maybe the second best quarterback in this draft. I think, he's definitely got the best pro intangibles out of any quarterback we've ever seen. But this is what we do in the NFL. I mean, everyone kind of beats themselves up in the weeks leading up to the draft. They overthink things, and then that's how a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers slides to the end of the first round. And, I'm not necessarily comparing the two, but at the same time, you have to wonder how a guy with so much talent and so much skill, people aren't trying to build him up. Instead, they're trying to find reasons not to like him this close to the draft.
All right, let's talk about a different position here. Running back Saquon Barkley may be the most intriguing prospect in the draft. He's been slotted as low as 7 in some mocks, but now there's rumblings that the Giants could take him at number 2. Connor, would Barkley be a fit in Pat Shurmur's scheme in New York?
Well, I think it's certainly going to be interesting. I've always kind of marked the Giants as taking Bradley Chubb out of North Carolina State with number 2, but the Giants' philosophy is always, if you're at that position, if you're picking that high, this guy's got to be a first ballot Hall of Fame type player. And when it comes to Saquon Barkley, people are talking about him like they're talking about Adrian Peterson coming out of the draft, 10 years ago. And so if that's really the grade that they have on him, that might be the pick. But, when I look at the Giants, they stack up defensive ends higher than a lot of other positions on their board. So I'd be very interested to see what they do with that pick at number 2. It's going to set the table for the rest of the draft.
Another name team fit we've heard is Lamar Jackson to the Patriots. What is the likelihood they're actually targeting him as a possible Brady heir apparent?
Well, I think it's going to be how far he slides. I would be very surprised to see him get past the Ravens. I know that they're picking in the middle of that first round. But at the same time, Belichick has 2 first-round picks, I think, for just the 3rd time in his career. And a couple other times he's used those to move up in the first round if there was a special talent. So I think that, Bill Belichick can make something to fit anybody. And Lamar Jackson is certainly an exceptional talent. I think he'd be interesting with the Patriots as another Brady heir apparent. But I've heard that the Patriots is kind of like some of the quarterbacks in that tier 2 class that might appear in the 2nd and 3rd round as well.
Now, Connor, you wrote recently about a crisis at the college level when it comes to wide receivers. You spoke specifically with former Panthers wide receivers coach Ricky Proehl, who pointed out how players are slow to learn route names and where to line up, not to mention some questionable techniques at the college level. With this year's class looking thin at the position and so many first-round busts over the last few years, how do you see teams in the NFL adjusting to this crisis?
Well, it's almost, the more you're seeing, the more successful NFL coaches are the ones that are kind of just, dropping down into the college level and sort of borrowing some of that terminology and some of those practices. But it's dangerous. There are a lot of receivers and a lot of teams now. Offenses want to move so fast in college and be so simple that they're only playing one position. And so just to learn another side of the field, to learn the slot, the X and the Y, I mean, it takes these guys a lot longer than it used to. And you're seeing that with that first round drought. I think Amari Cooper is the only one with a 35-plus catch season in the last 4 years. So it's definitely been a gigantic drought at the position.
All right, last thing, Connor, let's talk trades. Always speculation about trades leading up to the draft, as well, of course, as trades during the actual draft itself. Which team do you think should try and make a move and make a splash here?
Well, I think it's Buffalo. Everything this offseason has been setting up for them to get their quarterback and sort of complete this rebuild that they have going on now. But it's going to take a lot of capital. I mean, if you think about what it cost the Jets just to move up to number 3, Buffalo's probably looking at either 2 or 4, and that's going to be a steep price that they're going to have to pay. I'm very interested to see if they're willing to do it. But watch the Giants at number 2. Dave Gettleman was sitting right next to Ernie Accorsi when they pulled off that Eli Manning trade back in 2004. He's not afraid to wait until there's 7 minutes left with the second pick. So I think there could be some high drama maybe early on in the draft this year.
All right, just over a week to go. We'll start getting some definitive answers next week, of course. Connor Orr of the MMQB. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks.
The NFL draft is rapidly approaching. To go over one of the top prospects, we welcome in the coach of Wyoming and therefore, of course, Josh Allen's college coach, Craig Bohl. Now, Coach, would you take Josh Allen #1 overall?
You know, I certainly would, but I've not coached in the NFL. Josh has done some outstanding things for our football program, and I think he's continued to improve. We've seen a marked improvement from his when he got hurt against Air Force. He played well in the bowl game. I know he made progress in the Senior Bowl, and when he came back for our pro day, I could see areas where he really cleaned up some things that were deficient, like his footwork. He's got an unbelievably strong arm, and he can extend plays like nobody I've seen.
Now, is there any concern that he could wind up on the Browns, just considering their history? I mean, from you to him, any concern for him?
No, not at all. You know, I've always been a Brown fan, and I'm a big Josh Allen fan. I know he wants to be a face of a franchise, and I think he's well capable of doing that.
Now, what is your biggest concern for him then at the pro level? Accuracy has been brought up. What do you think is his biggest concern?
Well, when you say accuracy, I think those are some of the things that can be cleaned up. However, the windows in the NFL are much tighter than what he's going to be confronted with or was confronted with in the college game. And then also just the learning curve. Anytime you're an NFL starting quarterback, there's so many things coming at you.
With his family and his trainer, Bill Belichick's favorite, Alex Guerrero. Now a report out of NBC Boston says Brady is leading a pushback against the Patriots culture. What do you think, Robin? Have we been underselling this possible rift up there in New England?
I think so. I mean, look, if Brady and Belichick are in a feud, that's about as big a rift as there can be. And now we have several pieces of evidence. You have the thing about the trainer Guerrero. You have the ESPN report from the postseason. You now have Brady not being there right now. And then, of course, there's the Garoppolo trade, which to me is almost the smoking gun. They held on to this guy forever, and then they gave him up for what wasn't his proper value in return, at least as was reported. So I think there's a real issue in New England between Brady and Belichick.
Yeah, this rift's been kind of simmering for a while. Since Guerrero was booted out of Gillette Stadium, he lost his access to the team plane on charters. It upset Brady, and that's real. Here's the deal, though. It goes deeper than Brady. Gronkowski is working out with Guerrero in the TB12 method and all that stuff. There's an issue there. Gronk isn't at the workouts either. So I think it is very real. I think if you read some of the quotes from former players that have left this year, Danny Amendola, Nate Solder, Dion Lewis, they were fed up with the Bill Belichick iron fist. That's very telling, and we'll see if these guys eventually they're going to show up. It comes down to money, I think, more with Gronk than anything. But eventually Belichick's act is going to run its course.
Well, look, it's good for the sports media for us to discuss, and I'm sure there's a lot of fans out there seeing New England turmoil and going, excellent. Meanwhile, Aaron Judge has been excellent. He hit his 60th home run in his 197th game, the fewest games needed to hit 60 home runs in Major League Baseball history. So between the performance of Shohei Ohtani, Giancarlo Stanton's struggles, and Bryce Harper's future, is Judge actually not getting enough attention?
I don't know. Can you say someone on the Yankees is not getting enough attention? It's almost impossible. The Yankees get a ton of attention whether they're winning or whether they're losing. They haven't been great, obviously. Judge is off to a great start. He's up there with Mark McGwire's start when he got to 60 home runs, though McGwire did it a little bit younger. I think everyone just got to slow down with Judge. I'm the same guy. This is the point of the baseball season, Robin, 2 weeks in where everyone gets really excited. Slow down.
Well, it's coming off a great year last year. We're hearing more about the boos for Stanton than the home runs for Aaron Judge. You'll hear more about the Yankees, I'm sure, with us tomorrow. Same time, same place. Thanks for watching.